Hey, Chris.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going? Sorry, I got to turn off my
Yeah.
quad. I may have a brief conflict. I've got my calendars all screwed up. I might have to sneak out for 10 minutes for a quick patient call.
Absolutely.
No
Okay.
worries. Okay.
Hey,
Okay,
Elizabeth.
Live, we're good to go.
all right. Well, it's 9:02 a.m. This is a finance committee meeting. We have all of our committee members present. And for staff, we have Debbie Zarkis, Ann Chase, myself, and Melina Marks. All right. So first up, we have sales tax. And this is our report through July. As always, the caveat being there's a 2-month lag in reporting numbers. And so as as you look at that table, it's been a volatile year, a lot of ups and downs between being ahead of 2025 numbers and being behind. But overall, relatively strong for July reporting. And, certainly been hearing from businesses that, April and May were strong, but June and July have been weaker. And we should have updated numbers here shortly. But certainly town numbers aren't necessarily business numbers as we collect online tax.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So what we're seeing in the July numbers, is that our May or the April when we say there's a 2-month lag?
It's May.
May.
May, okay.
Yeah, always, it's always 2 months in the year.
Okay. And so what we're comparing actually in the line item then is July 2026 to July 2025. So our 2026 doesn't show the 2-month lag, but our 2025 number does.
No. So the same reporting that we would have gotten in 25 is also 2 months in the rear.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what you're looking at for July in 25 is also representing May.
All right. So we're apples to apples on that.
Yes.
We're pretty on par with last year. Year to date is only down 1.4%, 1.04%.
Okay.
Yep. So direct comparison to last year. And yeah, as I alluded to, I'm definitely interested to see the numbers that are coming in the August report, which will be June. And I think that'll be pretty telling as we're trying to forecast our sales tax number for the 2027 budget.
Okay.
Any questions on the?
Oh, I will make a comment though. Across the board, May was strong throughout town.
Yeah,
It was very strong. Everyone was hitting their target numbers. I'd say the first 2 to 3 weeks of June were pretty good. And then it dropped off
okay.
Yeah.
for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Stage 2, no fireworks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Road
Fourth
closure.
of July was definitely a lot.
It- Took a dip. These are the ebbs and flows of our little economy.
All right. There's no further questions. We can move on to our financial statements. So July financial statements came in on Friday. Yeah, so those were included in the packet revision, but didn't yet have time to go through the July statements and make notes. But for the June statements, what was included in the packet does have my notes in there. So hopefully you're able to see those. And again, happy to take questions. June, halfway point, and I would say feeling decent about our year-to-date numbers. Compared to last year, general fund revenue is down 12%. The timing of grant reimbursements does factor heavily into that, especially for larger grants like Brownfields, the Blair Street revitalization project.
So does our collection of like lodging fees. Some of our lodgers tend to submit multiple months at a time,
Okay.
which is something that Bevan and I are trying to crack down on a little bit. Sometimes they wait until the end of the year to submit all of their lodging fees, and so sometimes that revenue kind of postpones
I see.
our numbers a little bit.
We don't assess the little fee or anything like that for those who pay late.
We haven't had a late fee historically, but it's something that if we could certainly add to the fee schedule going into 2027. That's also something that we are already talking about for our business licenses and vacation rental licenses. We do have a deadline for those that a lot seem to not adhere to.
Mhm.
And so going into 2027, we might be implementing some penalty fees for late payments.
I think that's a good idea.
It also, specifically for the vacation rentals, when folks pay late, it backs up Bevan's ability to do fire inspections in a timely manner.
100%.
And so that's another reason why we really need to start collecting those at the beginning of the year so that come summer, he can plan accordingly.
And when we notify folks, we give them the reason why, it's so important for the cash flow and the town to stay on budget and so forth, so they understand.
Yeah, we usually send out reminder emails at the end of the year in December, and then a lot of times there are a handful that claim that they never got it. So, just having to navigate the system a little bit.
All right. Yeah, any questions or discussion about our in particular June financial statements?
Their property taxes, when did we say they actually sort of come in bulk?
What was the question?
We get property taxes on a monthly basis, the same way that we get sales tax.
Okay, so it's pretty flat, it's pretty level throughout the year.
Yeah, as of our July statements, we're at 84% of what we predicted we would bring. So that's strong, I would say.
Okay.
All right.
Kim Buck did say that they're gonna readjust the property tax at the county level.
Okay.
Adjusting it down 3% for commercial. I think it was a higher number for residential.
Okay.
I don't recall that other number off the top of my head.
All right. Well, moving on then to our local planning capacity grant. So as a reminder, this is a grant through the Department of Local Affairs. We currently have an LPC grant, which funds the Housing Authority Director position. And I should say that we have both Ann Chase here today, and it's Debbie Zarkis's first day as our incoming Housing Authority Director. So we're pleased to have them both here with us. So the intention was to submit our application for an additional round of local planning capacity grant funding next month. The current grant match requirement is 20%. So 80% coming from the state, 20% the town is matching. Now, the LPC grant was never intended to fund personnel indefinitely. And therefore, the match requirement is now 50%. So we have identified a $208,000 request. Therefore, the town, we need just $104,000 in match. So today we'd like to discuss potential of asking the county for support for that match. But before diving into that discussion, it is, I think, prudent to mention that the town, housing, affordable housing, consistently, a priority, both trustee priorities, in our master plan, from resident input. So we can prioritize this in the 2027 budget and commit to that 50% match from the general fund. And even though the match requirement for this grant source has been bumped up, grant that funds 50% personnel costs, is still, an excellent deal for the town. So that said, as we're contemplating, the possibility of reaching out to the county for support of this match, currently the lodger's tax sits at 2%. 40% of those funds are allocated to childcare and affordable housing. So what we'd like to discuss today is, do committee members feel that we want to ask the county for support? And if so, how much to ask? And in the memo, I've laid out just two very basic ask scenarios of going 50-50 with the county, the 75%, 25% split. And before opening it up to discussion, Anne, is there anything I missed or that you'd like to add?
There's two funding cycles for this. The first one opens August 24th, closes September 24th. And I strongly recommend that we pursue this round so that we are awarded prior to budget season so that we know what we're getting into. But if town and county can't decide on funding commitments yet, or we don't think we can hit the September 24th deadline, there's a spring application. But I think it makes sense to budget for next year with this grant award or not. My current projections are that the current grant award will fund this position until August of 2027. So either way, the board is going to commit close to 50K either to round out the salary for until the end of the year and or be a match for this new grant award. Yeah, and then I think just something for everyone to be conscious of when we apply for this grant and when we talk about this grant, it funds the housing director position of the town because it can't fund housing authorities. And so we've worked it so that the housing director of the town fulfills the housing authority duties, but isn't paying the housing authority director.
You say that last one again.
This is a town position. This money goes to the town and it doesn't go to the housing authority.
Okay.
So the housing director fulfills the duties of the Silverton Housing Authority to keep it going. But yeah.
And is that kind of within the job description then?
I drafted a job description that they have approved.
Okay.
And that's okay by the grants?
Yeah, they've approved this.
Okay.
We were very careful with how we spelled things out, but they are aware of that and approved it.
Okay.
So.
Does it help us? Well, just going back a little bit, we had a meeting with the county. They seemed pretty open to maybe going 50-50, if I recall right. Or did I sort of miss that assumption there?
That was gonna be my question was, have we followed up since our last meeting regarding the conversation?
Not for a conversation about funding this position. The follow-up with the county has been, for involvement with hiring the new director. But to Dave's comment, I think at our joint work session earlier this summer, the county, expressed support for the housing authority, for the great work that Anne's doing. But I think there was a, pretty clear comment that committing to recurring funding, line item in their budget. They didn't explicitly say that's not the direction they wanted to go, but they mentioned that the current structure of going to them on a, as needed basis to ask for funding worked for them. So if we do go forward with an ask from the county, it would follow that same structure, I imagine.
Yeah, I'd be okay for in the 75-25, was that 75 county, 25 town?
75 town, 25 county.
Okay, let's start with the 50-50 first,
Right.
if everyone agrees with that.
I think 75-25 is more palatable for them. And then my second question was, is there anything prohibiting us from the September 24th submittal?
We have to pass a resolution of the board committing to that match.
Okay.
So
But we have time though. Oh, good.
we have time.
Got
I'm just saying that you guys have to make that decision before then.
So what we've outlined is a request at the September 9th commissioners meeting for that letter of support and an intent to fund X amount. And then on the 14th, the town would pass a resolution to apply, and again, earmarking those funds for a match. So we do, it is possible to apply in September.
And we're not cutting it too close or anything like that?
No, the timeline still feels quite doable. Yeah.
Jim, did you say you prefer the 75-25?
Do I prefer, if I'm not, am I speaking loud enough? I'm sorry. Let me pull
Yeah.
this closer. My comment was after our last joint meeting, I think the 75-25 is more palatable for the county.
I would start 50-50, then go to 75-25 if they are hesitant.
I agree.
Okay.
Also, I have a
sorry,
qualifying question, if possible. So before I understood it as based on our, projections and hopes that not much would change and we would be awarded similar grant funding. So that has changed now. We've learned new things that they're not funding it as much as before. Is that why this is coming up?
It's coming up because they're still funding the same total amount. And there's no, I guess the outlook for them being able to fund the project or the position in its entirety is a good outlook. There's not concern there. The concern and concern is not the right word. Why the state is requiring a different match level now is that the intent of this grant is to, support personnel, but to get the entity to move toward, a self-sustaining funded position. And so in an effort to do that, the state is for this, because this is our second round of our second request, in order to further encourage us to find that, solution to having this position funded without grant support. They've bumped up the match requirement to 50%.
Okay, so that is new information, because I thought before we were hopeful that nothing was going to change, or did we have that information before and I just not understand it?
No, we just got that information last week.
And we're going to be the first jurisdiction to reapply to fund the same position. And part of our grant deliverables for this first award was to create a continuity and sustainability plan for this position. And so, yeah, this will be, from what I interpreted from our conversation, this will be our last local planning capacity grant for this position. So we're asking for 2 years just to try to give us as much time as possible. But the boards need to be aware that come 2029? Yeah. And I think the way we're structured is that they're running every half year. So we'll get halfway through 2029 funded by grants, and then we'll have another half year. I think that's a good way to structure the funding. Gloria and I talked about this a lot, was budget through July of the next year so that you're only committing a half of that each budget cycle, if that makes sense.
I think it does. So my thoughts on the bigger picture with the county is that this isn't just in terms of housing. This isn't just a town issue. This is being that the vast majority of the county, employees and so forth live in the town, and we had to solve the problem for both the county and the town. And so the idea is that if we're splitting as evenly, they're going to benefit as well in terms of housing for the employees, and the bigger picture is I think we have to take this on equally.
I will say that that is not how they perceive housing issues.
Mm-hmm.
They think town and county are very separate.
Okay, well, that's what I think we can talk to them about that and change the perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
And to add some more context, and provided a breakdown of what San Juan County has contributed to housing projects over the last couple of years. And so let's see. So in 2025, for both pre-development and for grant match, funded to the tune of about 22,000, 23, just shy of 23,000. So that an annual sum of 26,000 from the county is not a significant increase from what was provided in 2025. But that was two different asks. So coming with, a chunk of 26 in one ask, it's going to be the largest sum that we've asked at one go. And so, but based on the feedback we're hearing, so we can go to the county with that 50-50 request and then see if there's pushback, and and if there is, we have options to go with a different split.
We may not have time for this, but do we need to have sort of another meeting with them to sort of explain, this is a big picture, highest priority item in both the town and the county for the next few years. We've heard from everybody that they can't grow their businesses without being able to have staff that can live in town affordably. And so, I think we have to, pitch it again.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any pushback on 50-50, I think it's really important.
Yeah, I will reach out to the county because I do think having, since we just got this info last week, it's very short notice, but I do want to see if we can wrangle everyone's schedules. I'd feel much more comfortable having that meeting before going to the county with this almost kind of blind request of, a significant ask. So I will work on seeing if we can't get that on the books for perhaps that first week in September.
Do we have some good data on housing and how important it is to the county as well as the town? I've gotten to know the county commissioners a little bit, and I presented to them once. But in my experience, typically boards really appreciate some good solid data, and that helps, make your case simple, colorful, graphs, but really explaining, how housing is crucial to the success of the school and all the businesses. And, it filters down to everything in our economy up here.
Yeah, we have some data and it's in our master plan and we have recent studies. I think the commissioners know the weight and the importance of this. It's just how can we speak to their narrative or their belief
Yeah.
of this difference, separation between town and county.
Yep.
But that's hard to touch because I think that's just a long-standing perspective.
Yeah. Yep. Hard to change.
But they've always been extremely supportive of our requests.
Great. That's
So,
great.
and I think we've done a good job prepping them, letting them know that we will be asking for money for capacity. And so I honestly don't think it would hurt to just go straight to the board and request instead of having another conversation. I think we'll give them two options, 50-50 or 75-25.
No, I kind of disagree.
No,
No,
we don't.
we want to. Yeah, I agree with Chris. We want a very high likelihood of board approval and don't have to make a decision at that moment. And yeah.
Did not recommend having both options, just going with the 50-50.
Got it.
Yeah.
But
Chris, do you agree that we should try to squeeze in the time to sort of pitch and lay the landscape and get some feedback before we move forward, if its current timeline allows us to do that?
Yes, I also agree with that.
Jim, would you like to pursue a meeting with the county if we can?
We can squeeze it in. I think that'd be great.
Okay.
I know everyone's done the absolute best in providing information and providing visuals and graphs. All that. It's been good. I think Ian's done a great job. I also know their sentiment, and I always believe in asking for more. And you end up with a dollar amount that everyone can agree on. Absolutely. I'm just aware of how they have felt about this in the past, and maybe I'm wrong. And
That sense, sort of,
maybe Doc is right. And I
sense in that
no problem
meeting
with
we had with them was they didn't want to take on responsibility for executing or managing, but they seemed to be willing, to help us financially, with what we needed. So, yeah, my
That's what I
guess
heard as well.
was that a 50-50 split, I think they would be open for.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll reach out, see if we can't get a meeting on the books, and we'll be prepared to present that 50-50 match and requests. And if if we have to get into a conversation, we as far as that split, we'll do so. But yeah, we'll start with that ask.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So moving on to our next agenda item. Wanted to talk through some 2027 budget forecasting scenarios with the committee today. So with sales tax being such a significant portion of our general fund budget, it's important that we budget as appropriate, as accurate of a number for the upcoming year as possible. So, I've been giving thought to what that number could be, but want to get your input. So, per the Legislative Council staff's June 26th forecast. Consumer spending continues to slow, household finances continue to worsen, and relief to crude oil prices due to the war in Iran are expected to recede at a slower pace. And we can also see that in the memo, in the chart that I put together, sales tax is leveling off, but still equating to inflation rates. So again, the hope today is that we land on a sales tax number for the upcoming budget. And is that balance of not wanting to overpredict, because that could land us in hot water. But being realistic, not under predicting, so as not to, restrict our budget and what we can accomplish in the upcoming year. And I want to preface this all with the fact that, as a first time town administrator, I feel like I'm probably having a bit of a bias towards being conservative. And so,
You're on the right track.
Conservative is good.
Right, conservative, it's good.
But so my gut instinct is to back off from our 2026 budgeted sales tax revenue of 1.8 million and to revert back to 1.6 million. That was what was budgeted last in 2025. And so this would add restrictions to the upcoming budget. But if we do end up bringing in more sales tax and padding our contingency funds, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea in this economic climate and in, the impacts that the climate is having on our revenue streams. So anyway, we do want to strike that balance between being realistic, preparing for emergency situations, but also not hamstringing our projects in progress. So yeah, I'd love to open it up for input. And your thoughts on what we should budget our sales tax for in 2027.
So a quick question, again, looking back to 2025 when, some of us weren't here, was there a method or in 2025 that set the sales tax, maybe higher than what it should have been this year? How was that decision made?
Yeah. So in preparation for this meeting, went back to last year's discussion of this topic. It was really a combination of committee members, providing input on what town is experiencing this year, especially this summer, our time to bring in a lot of sales tax, and some of those more national and global trends, and volatility. And again, from viewing past meetings, a lot of it was just kind of this. I don't want to dumb it down to this gut feeling, but just a sense of how this year is going, and using the numbers that we have from this year. That's the best we've got to really predict for next year.
Okay. It wasn't in any sense based on a wish list of, this is what we're going to spend in 2026. We need this number to fill that. It was strictly based on some, here's a predicted growth that we're hoping to have.
Yeah, it wasn't driven by project need, just conditions. And Jim, since you've been on the finance committee,
What we tried to do, Doc, is we tried to look at everything and what was a priority and what could we strip out and how could we go bare bones and fill the coffers for town. That's what we tried to do last year. I think we did a pretty good job considering that last year was good and not great, but it was good. And my recommendation is the same as last year, getting back to basics, cutting out some of the pork that doesn't need to be there and focusing on our basic needs.
Okay, but this is, so I guess hitting that approach, is we're predicting what our sales tax will be next year, though that should be independent of any expenses that we are, there shouldn't be any balancing it against, we need it to be this. It is what it is.
Exactly. Yep.
So, yeah, I think I agree with Elizabeth on, let's keep this flat. And if we do better next year, our goal is to do better revenue. But we can't afford to make assumptions that we are, there could be another strong fire season, there could be a slow winter. So yeah, I'd be very conservative on the sales tax.
And it wouldn't be flat, right? Weren't we budgeted nearly 1.8 this year? Is that right?
Correct. Yes. So we
So
would
we would be going
we'll be
down
back.
200.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we've gone back down to, yeah.
And this is where we have a discussion. And if you guys want to keep it 1.8, we can keep it 1.8.
Actually, isn't Elizabeth recommend 1.6?
That's my recommendation. But yeah, this is the time for input. If there's sentiment that we should keep it at 1.8.
I would ratchet it down. That's me personally.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're more than one voice.
Of course, yeah. So good. Yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts?
I like the conservative approach. I think ratcheting it down is not a bad idea, and it will foster some of these hard conversations and decisions based around our expenses, based because we're expecting less revenue. We have just the previous conversation we were just talking about. That could be one line item of higher expense that we haven't been planning for, so on and so forth. So hopefully we have a great year, but if we have more environmental and therefore tourism challenges, I think it would be good to ratchet it back down to what appears to be 2021 and 2022 levels.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not quite apples to apples, but right, our 2026 sales tax numbers are more closely aligning what was forecast in the 2025 budget. So yeah, I think that 1.6 does seem appropriate for us.
Elizabeth, can I ask, and this is an even harder question, is that enough? If we look at some of our, big ticket expenses, that if we anticipate any growth, we put some numbers behind the 1.6 recommendation to say, worst case scenario, revenue drops, expenses go up. Is 1.6 actually the right number?
Yeah, I think, as far as, yeah,
You can't tell what it's gonna be.
it is a true prediction. As far as, I think though, for some of the, the ongoing and big projects that are soon to be coming online, I think between, us identifying additional grant sources that we're going to be pursuing for, the big ticket items like our water infrastructure projects. I think 1.6 sales tax, again, coupled with grant forecast, isn't going to hinder some of our, the essential projects that we are going to be pushing forward.
Well, I guess, just again, we're not looking at expenses or outlay. If we are better, is it more realistic to set it at 1.4 or 1.5, looking strictly at our trends on sales tax in the past, 2 years or 3 years, is 1.6 enough of a,
I see what you're saying.
But
you know,
I like where Doc's going with this. Is there a way to create a projection that does a low, median, and high? And I think that could answer a lot of the questions.
Yeah.
yeah,
Doc,
because I'm worried about.
that's where you're thinking about. That's what you're thinking about.
Exactly, yeah, I'm worried about some of the other items that are on, on our specifically revenue and both revenue and expenses. It seems like, take, for example, the transfer station. Are we going to realize the cash flow that we're hoping to realize in the next 6 months? Or what if we don't? So all the what ifs in some of these line items that seem like we're looking in a crystal ball. I'd really want to be cautious that we don't set our budget next year on one of our largest revenue items and miss it by $200,000.
That is considering the expenses though, rather than planning for what we think the sales tax income would be. So I feel like we're kind of getting in the weeds there a little bit.
It's the crystal ball.
Yeah.
Referring
I
to.
mean, that's a 16, almost 17% decrease in 1 year. So I mean, to me, that's pretty conservative already. But yeah, I mean, to go down to 1.5, right? That's over 22%. So that's pretty big reduction in sales tax on an already soft year. We've had some decent months, but like we're talking about, some of our biggest selling season here has been a little soft due to these environmental factors. And so if we're still tracking to, come in close to 2025, that's 1.8. I mean, going down to 1.6 seems really conservative to me, but I'm not against being even more conservative. I think that'll be, that once you start to talk about expenses and all of that, I think that'll be quite the tightening on the budget, but open-minded.
Yeah, you're spot on when you said this sort of frames the next discussion on our expenses. Just sort of looking at Kendall Mountain and so forth. We want to be really cautious before we take on any major or large projects, and then all of a sudden we don't hit the sales tax, at the end of the year next year. And yeah, I like the way you put it in terms of this adds a sense of like guardrails to what we're talking about and spending in some of these projects.
And this is why we have these good discussions. So let's proposal 1.6. That is a great target, I think.
That feels very conservative.
It is conservative. And I think it forces us to make good strategic decisions and live within our means, which, let's be honest, we've had a lot of money for quite a while. That money's not there. In some capacity it is, some capacity it's not. I think this makes us I'm not going to say better, because I think we're making good decisions, but continue to make good decisions. And if sales tax is more and comes in higher, then that's gravy. It's good for us.
Right.
But I like the 1.6.
I agree. I'd really worry just ratcheting it down too much more. But and hopefully, we'll get some water bills paid and some things of that nature. Some of these other efforts that we're looking towards that will help in other buckets, obviously, but we'll continue to do.
Sales tax, I don't think anybody is going to stop shopping online anytime soon.
But that's the gift.
And that's where a really good chunk of our sales tax comes from. That's why our sales taxes continue to go up even when
Oh, yeah.
businesses haven't necessarily been doing very well, because the online purchases are not going anywhere.
What's the, I'm sorry, I didn't see that in a line. What's the sort of percentage of online sales tax versus total?
No idea.
Yeah, we've
Not.
Doc, you can't ask those kind of questions.
Not a clue.
It's
But
just,
we
it's good to know
know
what
that
the,
when those purchases were added to our sales tax, the numbers have continued to increase over time.
can we look at that seriously, just percentage and what the impact is? Because the other thing I'm thinking about is this, as we have the sales tax discussion, is different, sort of a different day, is how can we get the town behind improving our sales tax in all these different ways? And how do we support businesses? How do we support, if it's coming in online, how can we help with that? But yeah,
Right.
to know what the impact is of the online sales tax would be really useful to say, do we want to throw our energy in that direction?
Yeah, and as I understand it, so the data we get back from the state, and correct me if I'm wrong for those who've been here a bit longer, like we're not able to tease out that split of in-person shopping versus online sales, but we might be able to extrapolate based on when the online sales tax came into practice. Kind of seeing what that bump
Yeah,
was. Again,
that's
it's
a
not going
good,
to be direct comparison,
that'd
but
be a good rough number. If we can't get the
yeah.
actual details, then that would be a good number to see. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think even the state is able to differentiate what comes from where, but we can at least look at when it started getting added to our
Yeah.
sales tax.
I would just add, very anecdotally here, but that yeah, there's only going to be more online shopping, and I don't think one really affects the other. I think the online has mainly to do with our rural nature and the fact that there's just those items are not available here. And if they were available somewhat close by, that's going to, a different municipality and county anyways. So, Durango, Montrose, et cetera. So, I think twofold here, like that number is probably going to stay flat or grow. Whereas, our in-town sales tax from our businesses here, different conversation of how can we continue to promote that and get more and more sales tax revenue through our local businesses doing well. That's certainly a hope and something that I think we can, work on from a, tourism advertising and, hoping that, this place doesn't catch on fire, we run out of water or anything like that. So.
Well, excellent. Exactly what I needed. And so we landed on that 1.6, and that's what I'll utilize as preparing the draft budget, which will be presented to everyone next month.
All right.
And finally, for today's meeting and conversation we just had, feeds into this nicely, but want to have a conversation about 2027 budget priorities. So, this is really a policy decision on where we want to, spend our funds for the upcoming year. So a little bit of context, nonprofit requests were formalized in 2022, but those requests haven't been entertained this year or in 2025. The town has funded organizations that provide government-like services like San Juan Development Association. So our contingency, our fund balance, we strive to have that as 25% of general fund revenue. And for capital outlay, in 2025, we've put together a capital improvement plan, and the board has allocated surplus funds to capital improvements in both 2025 and 2026. So for the purposes of today's discussion, put together some numbers of what our contingency could look like. And I do want to preface this by saying I feel like, well, that these numbers are just for the purposes of the discussion, subject to change with final projections. And these numbers that we're going to walk through today, I do think are on the rosy side as far as projections. So 2026 budget predicts net revenue over expense of 162,972. According to our June 2026 financial statements, indicates that the town, may fall short of that predicted net revenue over expense. And the estimated fund balance in the general fund in 2025 was 991,000. Audited numbers were approximately 1.3 million. So the new estimated fund balance for the general fund in 2026 is that 2025 audited ending fund balance plus that predicted net revenue over expense of approximately 1.5. So then if we take out that 25% the general fund revenue that is allotted for the fund reserve, let's see here. Oh, sorry, my scrolling went haywire. Puts us as a new estimated fund balance for the general fund in 2026 of 1.5. Oops, said that. So if we receive all our projected revenues for the general fund, this would be 989,000. So that leaves us with about just over $500,000 of contingency, in which we need to subtract out funds that are restricted and made available for capital improvements. So putting us at about a little bit over 400,000 for contingency. Again, just a projection for us to consider today. So with all that said, so the conversation today is not necessarily looking at, numbers of where we want to put funding, but how we want to allocate to certain categories and what to prioritize in 2027. So our auditor and accountant continue to recommend that we build our contingency and save for capital outlay and to continue to build our emergency funds, which are currently sitting at just over $500,000. So with all that context, I want to discuss with you all where we want to prioritize, again, nonprofits, building up contingency and, directing any surplus funding to capital outlay.
Chris? Doc?
Capital outlay, if I understand this right, is very sizable. Are there items in a capital outlay that can be pushed down the road until we're a little more confident that our revenue's improving?
Yeah, we definitely can, pick and choose. All the projects outlined in the 2025 capital improvement plan, that's the full picture. In reality, right, we need to, select and prioritize projects that are feasible and realistic, given our budget.
I would like to see if we can take any of our contingency funds, direct them towards revenue generating opportunities. Say if they're nonprofits that are going to be directly trying to grow business and bring, people into town. Facilitate that, and whatever isn't absolutely necessary on the projects, we push that down as far as possible till we can see a reliable recurrent revenue improvement.
I'm a little confused on some of this. So if we don't get the net revenue over expense of 162, that's what I'm hearing. We're now projecting less, right?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yeah,
so what is
based on
that?
our,
Instead of the total number, what is the net revenue over or under expense now?
yeah, so don't have a solid number at this point. You know, it's all projection based on financial statements. So where we're at with revenue in our most recent financial statements is looking at this point that will be under what was outlined in the 2026 budget. But don't have at this point in time, a solid number on what that would be.
Which
Okay.
we won't really have that until the end of the year. It's
Okay, but we have
until
this,
we're in budgeting season, we won't really know.
but we know that we feel like it's not going to be 162 in the black. So we think it's less than that. Is it going to be zero or is it going to be negative? Do we have this general idea?
Yeah, no, I'm not predicting, again, based off of our recent financial statements, you know, this, a dramatic, impact, to that net revenue over expense. But,
If it were zero or negative, we
Yeah.
would have wildly, our entire budget projection of last year would be wildly incorrect if it were negative or zero. So it
Yeah.
won't be that. It's just not going to be that much.
It's not going to be
Just not going to be
162.
162, based on what it's looking like right now.
Okay, and then my follow-up to that is that a lot of these capital outlays are, I mean, I'm looking at some of them now that are already pretty kind of deferred maintenance items, and I worry about, you know, um, not getting the Memorial Park gazebo done, you know, not getting the roof on the Kendall Mountain Lodge done, things of that nature. One big line item in here is the Kendall Mountain Bike Park. I guess I don't really know enough about that project and if that is, you know, tied to the Kindle lift upgrades. But if that is that may be something that is less important than, you know, repairing the visitor center and the roof and the gazebo that people have been town citizens have been, you know, asking for a long time. Yeah, that would be my thought on that. And then I would caution on, you know, taking money and giving it to other agencies and hoping that that money comes back as a return on investment from a tourism perspective. I would be, not that it's not a good idea. I just want to be very cautious in how we go about that, and that it's not blindly trusting, you know, other agencies with our money to bring tourism to town. So those would be my comments as follow up to what Dave said.
Which the last time that we did nonprofit requests, we did them because we had a surplus in the budget. If we go into 2027 and we continue to not take nonprofit requests, it wouldn't be out. I mean, we didn't take them this year or last year.
I would agree. I think we
Thanks.
should continue the policy of not, I think it is what it is.
Considering that we're already looking at a budget very similar to this year's budget next year, I don't think we should consider nonprofit requests at all.
Can I ask you this about the nonprofits? Are there any of them that are directly related to bringing in sales tax? Or are they like
Nonprofits are
the
taxes.
development, you know, Summerlin development? Are they would be what I would describe as indirectly?
yeah, so say, for example, the town has continued to prioritize funding San Juan Development Association, I believe most recently to the tune of about 12,000. You know, that's an organization that manages the Main Street program and a facade enhancement grant. So and it serves that sort of government-like function that we just don't currently have the capacity to house within town.
Yeah.
Another example would be our contract with the visitor center. And one thing, as I've been doing some research and familiarizing myself with the budget landscape, something we could potentially consider is, so creative districts are often housed within local government. That could be another nonprofit, but government-like function that we could prioritize in 2027. So, yeah.
Here's a sort of my thought. No, number one, we look at the scale of what we might put into a nonprofit idea. It could be just leave it as an idea right now. And it's relatively small, compared to some of our big, line items here. Granted, some of the line items I think are essential for continuing to bring business to town. One of them might be particularly important, which is that it's a small line item, which is the lift upgrade. Is that a safety issue? Is that, we obviously don't want to have anything that hold money back for anything that, would put people at risk. But if we look at like the kind of roof replacement, does that have to be done right now? Or is there something that we're pushing to squeeze that in within a year, or is it totally functional as it is?
I do know it's already been pushed back. And so that is one that I think the town needs to address sooner rather than later. Not only for the integrity of the building, Kendall Mountain being a big revenue generator for the town, and keeping that facility in good condition.
But I guess, is there, being totally like obvious, is there a leak? Is there something that's structurally at risk right now, or are we just doing this because we think it's a good time to do it?
No,
There are problems with it.
yeah, there's problems with it. And yeah, I've been talking to Steve about it, and I can certainly get some more information, but yeah, leaking.
Yeah, no, there are problems that need to be repaired.
Okay, but we need to know what those problems are. I guess that's the thing. If we're making tough decisions about very large expenditures, we need to know, is it imminent? Is it a 1-year thing? Is it something that can be fixed?
So I know that we've discussed this before. If you look back at some Parks and Rec committee meetings or some past meetings where we've discussed this, I know that Steve has laid out the exact problems in the past. You just have to look for it.
I don't have the time to go back and look through everything to make these decisions. This is where when we were asking for information in this type of a setting, I feel that I just need to have the information, put in front of us when we ask for it. Like, what specifically is wrong with the roof, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, certainly leaking. We can get more details from Steve. But everything that I've been exposed to about, especially Kendall Mountain Roof, I don't want to get too into the weeds on specific capital improvement projects, is that it's already been shoved off, and it's a priority.
Okay.
And I will say that, and again, happy to, hear from folks that were here when this 2025 capital improvement plan was approved. But, my understanding, again, as I've been, looking back on how this was created, is that, certainly there are, some more, I don't want projects that would, are very, pie in the sky, like the bike park. That's not an essential. It's not maintaining existing infrastructure. But all of the town's assets that are on here that either need maintenance, or improvements, these projects weren't, it wasn't just slapdash, a lot of thought went into this. And so what's prioritized on here is indeed a priority for the town's assets. And, certainly the town investing back in its infrastructure, whether, just like the absolute, necessities of treatment facilities, or, our other facilities like library, Kendall Mountain, that is an investment, certainly back into the community. Was that?
Can I jump in?
I'm just
Please
asking
do.
that-
Yeah.
that there is a tremendous amount of detail over the past years leading up to where we are as new members on the board. And honestly, me as an individual, I don't have the time or the bandwidth with a full-time job and so forth to go back through and identify on my own, what is a priority. So when I'm asking questions about the helping to make decisions on prioritizing, we kind of need to know why is it a priority? What specifically?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jump in. Hey, Doc, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
I'm leaning in close to the microphone. I'm sitting back and being quiet because I think all these are really good questions.
yeah.
And I think Chris is doing the same thing, just sitting back and listening. These are good questions. And when I came on the board, and I'm just going to use this as a little short story. When I came on in April of 2020, we had a ton of deferred maintenance even back then. For example, and the side of our town hall, the building itself, we're missing a whole section of paint that needs to be painted. Leaks at town hall, leaks over at Kendall Mountain. These are our profit centers. Kendall Mountain is obviously. And my stance was, and I said this in our work session, it's all on video, that if we don't take pride in our buildings and in our profit centers, no one else will. Obviously
Jim,
the bike park,
Jim,
obviously the bike park at
Sorry.
450,000. And I think that's it says right here, a phased project, and that's kind of, in my interpretation, a little bit low on the list, but it made the list.
Yeah.
There are other expenses that we need to look at and other CapEx projects that we need to look at. And I think your questions are good. They're great and they need to keep coming. I have a list somewhere that I can provide to you, and it'll just force me to go look for it. But we do have a priority list. I think it's 1 to 30. Everything, and we've been slowly chipping away over the past 6 years that I've been here. But it's the priority, the 1 through 7 priority is not necessarily in that order.
I mean,
And I,
it's like is a dream thing.
Yeah.
It'd be
And
great
Okay.
to do over time.
Let me
but there are
rephrase this a
different-
little bit. Jim, I get the idea that we definitely have to keep the pride and everything going. I'm just saying that I feel like I'm in a position to try to make some decisions on very large, expense items.
which is why I
And-
want you to ask those questions. I love it.
Yeah, so.
I love the fact that we have new ideas and new thought processes on this
That's
subcommittee.
what
It's great.
I would like to see, like a prioritized list, and then why those are specifically,
Exactly.
why that's a priority.
Yeah,
If
That's
it's
a
the
great
roof on
question.
Kendall, the roof has a leak, that's fine.
right.
Okay.
So a little bit of feedback and explanation next to each line item and dollar amount about why are we actually doing this?
Yes.
I think that to me, and I apologize because I already know some of this. So for me, this is just a refresher of sorts.
Yeah. And
But these are all
like the
really
Kendall
good
Mountain-
questions and I don't want you to stop asking them.
Yeah, like the Kendall Mountain Bike Skills Park, is that something that's a 5-year plan or is this a $450,000 line item in 2027? So.
Well, it says phased.
Yeah,
So-
no, again, that's more of a wish list item.
Yeah.
It's not something that we have identified as something that has to get done right now. I would say
Okay.
deferred maintenance is far more important than that.
So
That's
I think-
something that gets done over time and there's time and money for it.
And
think
what
in
I
order- this is a
can,
this is a very big topic. I think to make a good decision, like in a short period of time, a little more detail on the priority list and then what you guys recommend as priorities, and then a little snippet as to this is urgent because, or this is a wish list because it's generating revenue type of thing.
Yeah, definitely as we get the next steps in the budget season process will be to make those prioritizations. Today it's really about kind of bigger picture priorities. The town has over the last 2 years, identified, capital outlay as the priority or surplus funds. So really just wanting to kind of weigh again, that
And these are really just examples.
these are
Through 7 are just examples.
examples.
Um,
And right, so not wanting to really dive into prioritization, we will get to that here in the very near future. But does the town want to continue that trend of prioritizing capital investments? Do we want to, and I know as I've been again viewing past finance committee meetings and throughout budget season, there really was that mindset and action of kind of, for lack of a better term, trimming the fat and really focusing on town's capital that, has been in dire need of repair and maintenance. And in order to achieve that, nonprofit requests have not been entertained the last several years. So just to redirect the conversation a bit today, back to that loftier conversation about where we're going to prioritize funds in surplus funds in 2027.
And then may I just add a quick something? And then Doc, your question about the nonprofit requests, it's a good question. And it's something that we've mulled over in the past, and I'm gonna pick on Silverton ski joring for a second, because I think I can pick on them a little bit.
I think you're allowed to, Jim.
Silverton ski joring is an event that is the largest, I would say cash infusion to our community, when we need it most in the deepest part of our winter, season. And traditionally the request was for $10,000, but the past couple of years, without that safety net from the town, has forced ski joring to be smart, to pull the training wheels off and actually go out and find the money, submit those requests, those nonprofit requests around the state and region. And it's actually made the nonprofit stronger. And I believe from talking to other folks around town that by the town of Silverton not accepting requests and saying like, hey, we really need to focus on ourselves for right now, it's made everybody stronger. And I hope that provides a little bit of a backstory.
It does. That's good.
About why we did it, because at one point, Doc, it was like 18 different organizations
Yeah.
were applying for money, and it was over $100,000+. And it
Okay.
just became one of those things where if there's food in the trough, everyone's going to show up.
Okay. No, it
Does
makes
that make sense?
It does. It's good, like real insight.
Okay.
I just don't want to entirely not be able to focus on ways that we can possibly help generate sales tax. Trust me, I'm not a huge, I'll be totally honest, I'm not a huge nonprofit fan. I like organizations that stand on their own,
Right.
but it's almost like I would say funding for someone who's going to have a high likelihood of bringing new business, into town that's going to be sustainable business, and they can prove that they can prove they're going to do it year in and year out. Now that would be a very strict criteria to be able to hand out money.
Right.
But I think they would have to have that criteria in a business plan in a long term. It's not just a handout by any means. I would like us to be able to consider that there's some portion of our contingency, even if it's small, be set aside to start, helping the right entrepreneurs grow a business.
Well, what we did, and we did a good job of doing this, is in the first couple of years, obviously ending in what, 24, 25. I think it was 24. What we did is we gave those individuals the boost, the hand up, I should say, to get them on a stable footing so that they could go and march forward. Because the board at that time, including myself, didn't believe in just true handouts, just to hand out money. Sorry, my throat it is what it is. Chris, you got anything?
Yes, I
You
do.
feeling all right?
I'd just like to say that to Elizabeth's kind of redirect here, and I'm a big believer in catching up on this deferred maintenance. That would be how I would go into the thinking and the prioritization on some of these other things, like Kendall Mountain Bike Park. I don't understand that project at all. And some of these other ones I do, being on the Parks and Rec board a brief time, but I'm not exposed to that. So I don't know if that's turning the lift into a bike lift, or if there's, what that project looks like. So when it's appropriate, more detail on that would be certainly helpful. But I mean, everything else on this list, as an example, yeah, we need to take care of our stuff. It's not fun to see, parts of our town crumbling around us, and especially some of the first things people see getting off the train. And some of that is not really something we can really affect, but the general feeling that people get when they come to town, the more we can keep up our assets, that's going to help us and avoid much bigger costs later. And then I want to address what Doc's talking about here. I don't think that having a policy of not entertaining requests in this season is something that means we can't learn about a new opportunity and make those adjustments in the next year going forward. But I will say that I just don't think those opportunities that you're kind of describing really exist. I think they're very pie in the sky. And then when something comes around, I don't think there's any problem with, saying that we got to wait till the next year to change a policy or something on that. Just because, I don't know of any. We're in a very tough rural space that, is pretty obvious. And so that's where I would say that putting energy into, having some strict criteria for, I mean, all the things you mentioned about, hoping that, a nonprofit's going to show up with a multi-year, proving their, economic impact to, that's just, I think if that was the case, then we could get to know it and plan for it in the following year, and that would be just fine. And then just my personal opinion on how we would dangle a carrot that would really affect town is, bringing business to town, for-profit business, and not against nonprofits at all, but any more manufacturing, any more, local businesses that would want to come up and make this more of a year-round economy. I think that's where we have hope for sales tax growth. And I think we have a lot of the mechanisms in place to continue to promote for that. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
And I know this idea had been proposed in years past, hasn't come to fruition yet. But in regard to nonprofit requests, once we have our audited financial statements, that could be the time to entertain nonprofit requests. So kind of a timeline maybe more similar to the tourism board, and when they accept requests for funding. So that,
And that's where we have been directing people to the entities that actually do this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And we'll have, obviously, the whole board will have a much larger budget discussion when we start really hashing out all of the things that we're gonna need to prioritize going next year.
And certainly when we dive into that conversation about which capital improvements to prioritize with our anticipated contingency, we'll provide all the information you need on the nature of the project and where they fall on that priority list that we have.
And I
Did
think
you
going
have-
into this year, the priority was to focus on whatever deferred maintenance we could afford and not focus on any of the big fun projects. So
Right.
wastewater.
I think having that available for the entire board when we're sitting down, for that large discussion of this is why this is prioritized. It'd be essential to just get everybody quickly on the same page.
Yeah, we'll provide that information.
I appreciate what Chris said about the guidelines and guardrails for certain requests and all that. And I know that we have all that verbiage.
I'm sure.
Chris, I don't know if you've seen that, but we have in the past guidelines written for submittals that are relatively strict. I mean, they are strict. That provide a better understanding. And if you don't have that, we can get it to you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Do we ever do a matching if someone comes with a request that it's just a standard, it's not a handout, yes, you show us the matching funds or we will help reimburse you up to a certain amount after you're already paid, just like, standard grant items.
Yeah.
I've talked about that in the past. Doc, you have to go?
I have a few more, like 5 minutes.
Okay. We have discussed those type of mechanisms in the past. And it just seemed easier just to help people out in the beginning than to go back and forth. But those are all options.
Yeah, I mean, hold them accountable. And
Sorry.
then
It all comes down
if
to
they don't meet those,
Yeah.
if they don't meet those measures, the cash stays in that.
Yeah, and I this is again why I love the fact that y'all are asking these questions, because what I like to tell people is I don't know what I don't know, so I ask questions. And I feel y'all are doing the same thing, so keep asking them. And really what it boils down to, and Melina's absolutely correct, is if we have the funds and we've really made a concerted effort to refocus ourselves back to town facilities and back to town utilities where it's needed most. And then when people do ask about what can we do to help, I mean, obviously we help with in kind. I think we've done that. We continue to do that. And then what we do is we've directed people to where their requests are best suited
Yeah,
and
and
try to
Jim,
help
I would
and try
just-
to help them out that way as well.
Yeah, Jim, I was just gonna respond to you. I didn't have a whole lot of questions about the criteria. I was more in the camp of not entertaining the nonprofit requests at this time as we're doing now is where I'm fine with.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for,
Now,
Yeah.
a lot of.
No, it's just a part of the education process. If we all went back to when I joined, we all had the same questions as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's good because October is when we're gonna really
Yeah.
get into the nitty gritty of it. So it's good that we're getting going.
yeah, and super helpful to nail down that sales tax number and priorities for funding. So I really appreciate the input and conversation.
And then hopefully we'll come in over next year.
That would be
That would be
wonderful. Yeah. Okay, well, that was our last item for this morning. So unless you have any other questions or comments, just wanted to thank you all for your time and input.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Dave?
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
All right. 10:26, we'll go ahead and end our finance committee meeting. Bye, guys. Bye, Dave.